everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on Death Note episode 24. So I'll be honest with y'all, it has been nearly 2 weeks since I've watched episode 23. I recorded episode 23 a little bit early, and then I got caught up in some other shows, mainly Neon Genesis Evangelion, End of Evangelion. That whole recap took a long time to do, and so it took so long that it kept pushing back some of my other reactions, and Death Note was one of them. So I just finished watching the dub of episode 23 and was like, okay, so Higuchi's caught. It's like Higuchi's caught. What that's going to entail, I don't know. How we're going to deal with that, I don't know. Is this the climax of Light's plan that originated back in episode 14? Like, that's been going on for like 10 episodes? I don't know. It's all seems like it's all finally coming to a head, and that this arc, whatever it is about to reach either its climax or its ending. And so now where do we go to from there? I am not sure. However, I have some comments, one of which I think is going to help us determine that. So, Kingo had a really, really cool comment, like way back in episode 17 or 18, talking about how Japanese stories, like the Western literary tradition, is to have a 3-act structure. And I've been preaching that all throughout this series, that it's been following a 3-act structure. But Kingo comments that based on Chinese quatrain, that a lot of Japanese stories actually have a 4-act structure. And I was like, oh, that changes everything. I may be using that for every other series from now on that's anime, being like a 4-act structure. Okay. And how the 4-act structure works is it's called Kisho Tenketsu. And the idea is that you have intro, development, a turn, and then conclusion. And I was like, I love that. So what it is, so basically if you're doing a 4-act structure applied to this series, you would have episodes 1 through 9 being the intro, which aligns perfectly with Death Note. We got introduced to all the main characters. I think Misa came in around episode 9. Perfect. All gets settled. Or at least the introduction gets at least Light. I think that might have been around the time Light and L came to know one another. So that was the intro. Then you had the development. So that would be episodes 10 through 18. So you had Misa coming in and shaking things up. And that would end right before Matsuda. So that makes a lot of sense, because it would basically be implying that you would have your development. Misa would come into the story. Kira and L's back and forth chase of wit gets more heated, and then finally Light makes the decision to give up the powers of the Death Note so that he can escape being captured by L, and then that leads into episode 18. And then episodes 19 through 27 would be the turn. So the turn is where kind of leading to like the twist in the story. So I've noticed that it seems like everything kind of has like, the energy has kind of gone down a little bit around episodes 17 through 20. The energy kind of like went down. It was a little bit different than the Death Note we've had before. I've enjoyed it, but I've noticed some people in the comments have not had as much to say about it. They're like, or some people don't like this arc. But then the last few episodes, everything started to pick back up again. So the turn, I believe, is going to happen around this time, because now that we've got Higuchi caught, the whole twist or whatever Light's plan has been is going to be revealed. I'm really excited for that. And then that would mean that episodes 28 through 37 will be our final act, not our third act, our final act leading to our climax and conclusion. So I actually like that, Kingo. I'm glad you told me, because now I'm going to apply that to Death Note and possibly other anime that I watch. So thank you very much. I have a few more comments before we begin. Some dude commented how we as the audience, we don't root for Higuchi, and yet we are often divided about Light. Like as a whole, I don't think anybody roots for Higuchi as Kira, but Light, we do have kind of this division where some people do root for him as Kira and others do not. And so it's interesting, but now that we know more about like the method that Light uses to convict criminals, and kind of Light's ego, but also his like finesse and his class and kind of his motivations and reasoning, yeah, it makes sense, right? Why we would not support Higuchi, but why some people would maybe support Light. It makes it a lot more complicated, right? I'm going to try to stay unbiased. I'm definitely, I used to say I'm Team L, but I'm trying to be like play RYUK's advocate on this. I'm still pretty torn. There are aspects about L and Light that I do like, and aspects about L and Light I do recognize as why people may not choose that side. So I'm going to try to stay as neutral as I can. I'm Team Watari, I guess, right? But also, it's interesting. What does this say about us, the audience, that some of us would root for Light, but that nobody roots for Higuchi? And I think it's down to their character and their motivations, right? And so Akane Shio pointed out that the words in the opening of the Death Note Cour number 2 are actually the word Death Note in different languages. That makes a lot of sense. So thank you for that. And that there is a subtle difference between Japanese acting and Western acting, which is noted in Misa. When Misa acts all very dramatic and L's like, stop it, cut it out, you're overacting. Akane Shio noted that in Japanese acting, it's much more stage-like and dramatic. And that kind of ties to why Misa acts that way. And L, who we've established has spent a period of time in Britain, is maybe not used to that, or doesn't recognize it as much. And so I like that, because I know in Western culture, there is a very distinct difference between theater acting and film acting. Theater acting is a lot more dramatic and over the top and has bigger, wider gestures, whereas film acting is much more realistic and contained. So I like that distinction. Thank you for that. And then finally, Lyndon Price talks about how, we got to give Higuchi some credit. He wasn't dumb. No, Higuchi was not dumb. Higuchi made the right moves. He just wasn't on Ellen Light's level. I also want to make note, I think it should be known to Light now that Elle is not someone to necessarily be messed with. Not only can Elle fly a helicopter, his butler is a sniper, and he has all these resources. So Elle, if Light has learned anything from these last 6 or 7 episodes, it's that Elle is highly prepared, highly funded, and knows some shit. So he's not to be trifled with, willy-nilly. So, but yeah, I am so curious. It's been so hard to wait to watch this episode. It's been so hard, but I had to keep pushing it back, and I was like, ugh. But I want to know so badly what is going to happen. But at this point, we're kind of in no man's land, because I always guessed we'd catch Higuchi and the Yotsuba people. I always thought that we'd catch the Yotsuba Kira that was going to be a given, right? And that it was going to happen before the climax, because if the climax was just catching the Yotsuba Kira, we've built up a lot more dramatic stuff than that so far in this series. But now that we've actually caught them, what do we do? So it's no man's land from here, but I'm going to be curious to see what Rim has in store for Light if Light and Misa get off the hook. So, oh my God. So let's not waste any more time. Let's find out, shall we? We're going to watch episode 24 of Death Note, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Y'all, I'm not going to be able to wait for episode 25. No, I don't want Elle to die. Oh my God. So this episode happened. I'm gonna say first and foremost, I didn't mind BoyScout Light. I really didn't. It's the saddest thing. It's the saddest, because I'm sure there's people in the comments that are gonna be like, I couldn't wait for Light to get his memories back, and I'm so torn, because there was a part of me that up until this episode, part of Light's endearment is just how egotistical he is, and just how egotistical he is, how much of a God complex he has, and it's just such an extreme. And Elle is kind of to an extreme too. So it's one of those scenarios where, yeah, you kind of find it endearing after a while because it's part of his charm, but then he loses all of that, and it's really jarring, and you're like, oh. But then you realize that, okay, underneath it all, without the Death Note amplifying everything around Light, it's like underneath it all, he really, had a strong moral code and compass, and you started to figure out, okay, this is why Light is doing these things, and it all makes sense. And then the moment he gains it back, that scream, that expression on his face when he touches the notebook, that's not good. No, that scream of him regaining all those memories, that isn't supposed, I don't feel like we're supposed to feel good about that. That feels like it's supposed to be a bad thing. Like it's all coming back to him, but it's the worst possible thing. Like if he hadn't touched the notebook. Oh. And somebody tried to spoil that he'd gain his memories all back, because I had wondered about that, and then they were like, well, if touching a piece of paper doesn't give you your whole memories back, and I'm like, Really? I was like, really? At that point, I wrote their name. I did write their name into the comment note. I did write their name after I read that comment. I was like, nope. I was like, not reading your comments anymore because you're trying to spoil shit. So yeah, I was just like, I'm like, come on. If anybody could have figured that out, right? So that part didn't surprise me at all, but just, oh my God, this episode. The fact that everyone knows Rim's there. The fact that Daddy Yagami, that Matsuda, Goji, Aizawa, L, they all know Rim's there. And I'm going to wonder about that, right? And we're going to tie to that, but I'm real nervous for L. I'm really worried. I'm not gonna, here's the thing, because Light's the protagonist, right? Light is the protagonist, okay? And am I gonna be surprised if L dies in this series? No, I'm not. But here's the problem. We don't know. Mito didn't show up in this episode. We've not seen Mito. He's still in the OP. We didn't see that lady. There's the blonde guy, the guy with the yellow eyes. There are at least 4 major players. If they're in the OP, there's a reason for them to be in the OP, okay? There are 4 major players. We still have no clue how they're going to act. And my fear is that if Light kills off L in the next episode, he's still got these 4 people he doesn't even know he's going to have to deal with. And he won't have L by his side because because that's the thing. This series, the last several episodes have shown us that L and Light work really good hand in hand. They're both like-minded. They work really well together. They were able to solve the Otsuba case. The thing of it is, Light is smart, insanely smart, but L is insanely smart and has these insane resources, right? So, the only thing you think of is that if Light kills L, then he's gonna not have those resources anymore because Watari's not gonna let him use it unless he's gonna try to manipulate the situation and be like, well, L wanted me to take over for him. And then I'm gonna be really pissed and be like, no! Because Light told you back then that wasn't gonna be a thing. Because that was going to point to him being Kira. The fake rule and everything. We need to go through this episode, but I am so shaken, y'all. And I don't think, I'm recording this on a Thursday. This is supposed to come out on Patreon on Saturday to show you how far behind I am. But I don't think I'm going to be able to wait to watch episode 25. I don't think I'm going to be able to wait. I think I'll have to just go in a balls blazing without any comments to talk about because I just need to know. If it wasn't so late tonight, I'd go ahead and watch it, but it's late. So I don't, by the time I get out of the discussion, it's going to be too late to watch it. But, oh my God. I can't. We need to go through this episode because there's so much that can be talked about, but my heart, I'm like, it's like sunk into my stomach. Like I thought we were going to bring Higuchi in for questioning. I didn't know that he was just going to come out and say it's the Notebook, but he did. So yeah, so we need to talk about this. Okay, we need to talk about some things. So I'm going to put over here, Light versus BoyScout Light. I like calling him BoyScout Light because he really is like the most innocent, right? Light, aka as Kira. We're gonna put that there. Versus that, we're gonna put that over there. And then I want to talk about L and him trying to figure everything out here. We're gonna do that. I don't want L to die. I'm like, if I just keep saying it, it won't happen, right? We can change the trajectory of this series, right? And so then I want to write down Rim and RYUK, right? I feel like they kind of go hand in hand in this. And I'm going to put Misa over here. Misa, we'll talk about Misa. Okay. So Higuchi, they're like going to apprehend him. And they're trying to be as careful as they can because Higuchi has the eyes. Light is not wanting to take the eyes, right? Light still has no desire to do that whatsoever. So he wants to keep Misa around as long as possible because she has the eyes and she's a very valuable asset to him because of those. But here's the thing. I'm going to go ahead and say it that Higuchi as Kira was like, oh, I need to marry Misa not because he loved her. Not because he loved her. Hell no, Higuchi didn't love her. He may have lusted after her, but he didn't love her. But he wanted her around because she had the eyes and she was an asset. She was somebody that could help him commit crimes and protect him in case if he's targeted. He'd be like, well, if somebody's going to target me, all I have to do is have her look at them, tell me their name, and we're good. And we go from there, right? Right? But Light made the point, Boy Scout Light made a point of keeping Misa not only from harm's way. And we talked about this in the last couple episodes, that as a brother having a sister, there's possibly something tied to it. But also, he did not rely on Misa. Boy Scout Light didn't really rely on her. He was like, no. And you could say that's because he didn't know she had the eyes. But again, that would just be using her for ability, right? Not because you want her around, not because you care about her necessarily, but because you want her ability, right? So Boy Scout Light didn't really rely on Misa. He did all the concoctions and deductions himself. If he relied on anybody, it was Elle, and that's mainly because him and Elle were handcuffed together and didn't have a choice, right? So that was Boy Scout Light. Light as Kira, you could say he did not necessarily keep Misa, and I know as I'm writing this, somebody in the comments gonna disagree with me, keep Misa from harm. Because he did have her go dig up the notebook, which by herself, which was a thing. Also, him like reacting to her losing half her life again. He was like, oh no. But my main thing is this part so much isn't what Light as Kira is different as, but it's the fact that he is using Misa again. He's using her. That whole thing with the letter, when we get to it, telling her to kill Elle because he'll love her forever if she does that. He isn't gonna love her forever. No. Light established as Boy Scout Light that he doesn't love Misa. They're just friends. He cares about her, but he doesn't love her. Here, Light as Kira's like, yes, I'll love you forever, for the rest of my days if you kill Elle. Like, that clearly is a lie. And then him saying like, oh, you and I will work together. We'll be together forever as the two Kiras just punishing the wicked and just being gods of this world. I'm like, you're doing the same thing Higuchi wanted to do. You're using Misa for your own ends. You don't love her because you didn't love her when you didn't have the notebook. And you are the same person, just with the notebook and the memories of it. So he doesn't love Misa. He's just using her. He's doing the same thing Higuchi was going to do. And that just, so frustrating, right? And Misa, who genuinely loves Light to the ends of the earth, is willing, she said before she was willing to kill herself for him, is willing to have her life twice to earn Light's love. And Rim is not happy about that. So we're going to talk about that when we get to it. But that frustrated me so much. I was like, damn it. On the one hand, yeah, this show is a lot more dynamic when Light has his Kira memories and when Light is egotistical. And he just went off the deep end instantly. Like the moment he got his memories back, he looked like Higuchi. He had the evil grin and everything. He looked like Higuchi, except Light's just more naturally handsome than Higuchi, so he looked hotter doing it. But he had the same facial expression and everything. Same thing, right? And as entertaining as that is, it's so frustrating because I was like, we saw what you are and what power does to you. And it's like, oh my God, and what it reveals, right? So going to them. So he establishes, he gets out of the car. We did talk in the Discord about the animation budget for this series being like $40 million, being like $1 million per episode. It's kind of insane. And that some of the animation's wonky and they're like, the money's on the screen. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe $1 million an episode. You had some high name voice talent. Maybe Miyano was getting a bonus. Although this was Miyano's one of his earlier works, so probably not. But I'm amazed that Higuchi I really thought Higuchi would have gave up the notebook. But he was too proud. He was too proud to do it, right? I thought he'd give up the notebook. I guess he hadn't thought like Light had of all the ways that would have been a beneficial thing. Because I'm like, if he just gave up the notebook, we could have started back to square one, right? He wouldn't have had to mention the notebook, nothing. We could have started back to square one and Elle would have been probably eternally pissed, right? But, oh my God. So he's like, give him the headset. And they say, and Elle asks him to explain how he kills people. And he says it's the notebook. Elle takes this very well in this episode. I am proud of Elle for the most part because, and I love he has the thermos with the coffee and he's like, just tell me. Like he's just trying to, it cracks me up that he's just sitting there and Watari's like gonna snipe him, but Watari's not gonna kill him. He's gonna shoot him to where he's not mortally wounded. And he actually tells him it's the notebook. He says that the notebook does it. I'm amazed that they revealed that. They revealed it. I can't believe they actually said it. That was going to drive me nuts if they didn't find out about the notebook and we had all of last episode building up to it. That was going to drive me absolutely insane. I'm glad we didn't do that. I'm glad that wasn't the case. I'm glad the mangaka was like, no, let's just go. And Elle's just like, Like Elle doesn't even have to fill in the gaps. He's like, okay. So I want to write up here what Elle does know, because I think that's important. Elle now knows that the Death Note, how it works. He now knows how the Death Note works. Good on him. Good on him. Yep. He knows the rules. He's like, the notebook, and that all explains. It did not register to me that Chief Yagami was grabbing it, that he'd be able to see Rim. Did not register to me in that moment. And then it happens and I'm like, oh no, him and Mogi can see her. And poor Rim. Poor Rim's just standing there like, just another day in the human world. I feel bad for Rim. Rim's such a good sport because Rim didn't ask for any of this. She just wanted, and we're going to get to this. We're going to get to this, right? You don't have a gun on you right now. He's like, you can't shoot that thing anyway. And he's like, oh yeah, I love that you like reached for the gun that's non-existent, right? And he's like, can't you see it? And he's like, oh yeah, only the people who've touched the notebook can see this. This monster. And I like that Elle is like, monster, huh? He's like, bring me the notebook. But God, that was all part of, I give Light a lot of credit in this episode because he was assuming a lot was going to go down, right? But him and Elle are so similar that I think he realized Elle would keep him close no matter what happened. So he knew that even if Elle got his hands on the notebook, it was going to make its way back to Light, right? The sad thing is that I'm going to put this up here, just the scream, that loss, it's almost like it's a loss of innocence. And I'm going to just say it's a fall from grace. Him getting the notebook and getting all the memories back. Because as boring as people may have said BoyScout Light was, he did have a good heart and he wasn't corrupted. And the moment he gets that Death Note back and has that scream, that it's all over. Right? Everything that he could have built up, any goodwill, any friendship that those three could have had is completely gone, right? And it's all in that scream touching the Death Note. Oh, God, that is like one of the most heartbreaking scenes in this entire series is him touching that notebook because it's all over. Now, Rim, in this moment, she says, what in the world are you planning, Light Yagami? So here's the thing. Rim believes that this is all to the service of Light and Misa getting released and Misa being safe. Rim has been led to do everything Light has told her under the guise that it is going to protect Misa. However, there have been several instances over the last couple episodes where Rim has been like, is this really part of his plan? Is this really what he's wanting? And so Rim's like, all these people seeing me, is that part of the plan? Is this just getting Misa released? So when Misa shows back up, and she's like, now wait a minute. Wait, hold on. So Rim is under the impression, we're going to talk about this as we go, under the impression that Light is out for Misa's best interests. Light is playing Rim so much because he knows Rim is going to give him more answers than Ryuk will. Now, Ryuk and Misa as a pair, we're going to talk about them because they're somewhat interesting as a pair and a dynamic. But Light, he's using Rim. Absolutely. He knows Rim's maybe the better Shinigami of the two. So he wants Rim because she's a bit wiser, has more access. Ryuk don't give a shit. He doesn't care about Light. He's said that multiple times, but Rim cares. Ryuk does not care. Ryuk's chaos. He's chaotic neutral for sure. Rim cares. She's neutral good. I think she's neutral good. She does have some sympathy and compassion for a Shinigami, right? Enough that she will threaten anybody that hurts people she cares about. But she's only helping Light because she believes Misa is going to be okay because of it. We're going to talk about that too. But here, you just see little seeds of doubt in Rim being like, what are you doing? Why is this happening? All this chaos. Is this really going to release Misa? And Light doesn't care about Misa as Kira. Light as Kira does not care about Misa. He only cares about his agenda and his new world and being the god of it. That's ego Light, right? So, oh my God. But yeah, they take the notebook. When you take hold of the notebook once more, all of your memories you had of the Death Note will return. But, she says but, right? She says all your memories will return, but. So there's a caveat there, like, is that a good thing or not, right? There's a big but, so I'm curious. I'm going to put that but here in parentheses. Or in quotation marks and leave it there, right? With a question mark of what was she saying? I'm sure we'll find out eventually. So yeah, I love that L like takes it like he does everything else and holds the notebook and nothing seems to happen, but then he looks over and sees, you know, a 9 foot tall Shinigami. No big deal. It's fine. That shot of L looks straight out of the manga and looks... He's handling it a lot better than I thought he would. I thought that L was going to just absolutely like, it's a Shinigami, isn't it? They really do exist. He's like, well, my world's been rocked. But then all of the things start coming to L that he's like, oh my God. So he's like, Light, a notebook. Show each other our notebooks in Aoyama. So L comes to the conclusion that there are more than 2 notebooks. He's like, okay, it's the notebook. That's the killing power. He knows how it works. Love at first sight. Ryuzaki, let me see it too. And you can see Light asking for it. You can see Light asking for the notebook. Like, give it, let me see it too. Love at first sight. And, God. But that line where I want to put that in here. Love at first sight. That L's piecing things together. And Light just can't wait. He wants to take it back. And he says, the second Kira. So the question is, 2 books. The question is, how much does L truly figure out in this moment, right? He's like, there are more than 2 notebooks in existence. This isn't finished yet. Yeah, no. So L has realized that if there are more than 2 notebooks, this doesn't just stop at Light and Misa. This is a much more complicated problem. And that there could be others that have the notebook as well. I don't know. Like, Mito could have one. The woman could have one. The blonde person could have one. The one with yellow eyes could have one. There could be notebooks all over the place. Who knows? And L has just realized that. And he's like, well, shit. This is a problem. The thing of it is, I don't think that Light cares nor really thinks that that's a thing. I think that Light believes that he's like, well, yeah, there's a second notebook, second Kira. It's just me and Misa. Me and Misa are going to rule the world. But here's the thing. By L's logic, no, there could be a lot of people with death notes that we don't even know about. And the thing of it is that, here's the thing about Higuchi. Higuchi didn't want to be a god. He just wanted to get power and money. He wasn't trying to reform the world. He was just killing people to get to the top, right? So I'm wondering if L's catching on to the fact that, yeah, there could be other people that have these death notes that aren't even trying to become gods either. They're just using them to place themselves in a status of power. And then they die eventually and the notebook goes on to someone else. It just keeps going on and on. I mean, it could be something that ties into like the societal notion of, you know, there's like the wealthy class and the upper elitism and the upper elites. Well, what if in this story, some of the upper elites are upper elites because they've had death notes all this time, or they've passed it down generation to generation. Who's to say, right? I mean, not everybody that gains the death note necessarily has a god complex. It's just Light's had a god complex this whole time, and the death note has amplified it and gave him the ammunition to act upon it. Higuchi just wanted a promotion. He just wanted power. That's all he wanted. That's all he cared about. So he was fully content to stay in his apartment and just write some names down of competitors and leave it at that. Who's to say the other people that have death notes out there aren't doing the same thing? And Light is so blinded by the idea that he's the only one that's going to get to be god of this new world. It's like, no, honey, there are other people with death notes that are just out there and you don't even know. But they don't care about the rest of the world. They just care about themselves. So they're not writing names of random people or criminals in it. They're just using it for their own advantage. I think that's what Elle is starting to piece together. But I don't know if Light's ego will let him see that too. So time will tell. But I'm like, And then him saying, and then Elle looking over and seeing, oh my God, that Elle seeing Light like that image, like Elle looks horrified, like his fears have come to fruition. Oh my God. That shot of him holding the notebook and screaming, that kind of like, nope. That's absolutely terrifying. And then he just screams, a Shinigami. And, oh my God, it says, write the name in the death note and L. Oh my God. Like, those are the two things he remembers. A Shinigami, write the name in the death note, and L, I am L. Oh my God. Like, that's all Light remembers is about a Shinigami being told to write the name in the notebook. And I am L. It's so terrifying. It's so terrifying. And L just thinks that he's scared because of the Shinigami. Yeah, he's like, hey, are you all right? Like, oh, no! No! I can't wait to hear the English dub for this. Oh, my God. Anyone would be surprised by that monster. But Light's never been surprised by the monster. No. And then he's like, Ryuzaki, and he's like, yes, I'm going to try and match the names written in here. He instantly, with the names of the victims, he instantly goes into plan mode. Like, just like that, just done. 2 seconds after regaining his memories, and he's already planning a way to kill Higuchi. It took 2 seconds. It took 2 seconds for him to realize what he needed to do. Like Moriarty, my friends. So yeah, using the blood to kill Higuchi. Like, Light is a master planner. He is a community organizer. He puts things in motion, right? And instantly starts messing with the laptop. And he's like, well, yeah, sure, you could totally do that. And you know what I hate about this moment is the visual symbolism. The last episode, Elle and Light were looking at the same trajectory. They were looking at the same way, the same direction. They were side by side, looking together. And the very first thing, as soon as Light gets his memories back, he is instantly turned away from Elle. He has cut off that relationship. It's over. He's back to wanting to kill him again. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my soul in half because we can't have nice things. And Elle's just like, oh, well, this is a turn of events. This isn't like you. Okay, crazy. Yeah, and I love that little tiny face. I want to capture it. Yeah, where Elle is just like, something's not right. Something bad has just happened. And then God Light's back. Yeah, I've won. Just as I planned. And his face looks just like Higuchi's. His face looks just as dastardly as Higuchi. It's no different, y'all. It's no different. It is not. I'm sorry, but he looks just as evil as Higuchi, except his eyes are red, but it's weird. His eyes turn red, but he doesn't have the Shinigami eyes. So I think that's just always been the visual symbolism with Light, which is funny. But, so here's the thing we have we have the Death Note that is Rim's. So we play hot potato with these Death Notes, right? So we have Misa's Death Note. Misa's Death Note goes from Light to Rim. Okay. So the Death Note goes back to Rim. And he says, I relinquish ownership of this Death Note because Light had obtained her Death Note from Misa. Gives it back to Rim. Now the ownership belongs to Rim. Okay. And he's like, am I right? And she's like, yes, what's the point? He's like, now give it to RYUK. And I just love their stand between them. I also love that Rim is a white Shinigami and RYUK is black, always. And so then it goes to RYUK, right? It goes back to RYUK. And now the ownership belongs to RYUK, right? So RYUK dropped the notebook on the ground of the human world again. And he's like, okay. He's like, well, okay, sure, whatever. And then Light picks it up. So then RYUK, he threw it on the ground, right? And then it goes back to Light. Okay? So Light has ownership of it again. Now the ownership belongs to me again. And he's like, well, it just went around. Nothing has changed. And he's like, yeah, that's true. But there will come a time when this will be useful. And so then this notebook, and he's holding it with the thing, the one I first received. He's like, I'm going to return it to you, RYUK. Give it back to Rim. Okay. And so Light takes his notebook and gives it to RYUK, who gives it to Rim. Okay? All right. And so from there, Rim has it, and he tells it to give it to a person and she gives it to Higuchi. Okay. So the notebook that she had, okay, okay. That's what was confusing me, because originally I thought that the notebook that Higuchi had was the one that was Misa's, but it was not. It was Light's that Rim gave to Higuchi. So Light just got, okay, so he just got back the notebook from Higuchi. Okay, there we go. And then Misa's, from there, that one goes back to instead of the ground, it doesn't go back to Light. It ends up going back to Misa. So they get their notebooks back that they started with so they can gain their memories back. But the thing of it is, because RYUK at some point had touched Misa's notebook, when Light gained it back, then when she touched him with a piece of paper, he could see RYUK again. That all makes sense. That all makes sense. Okay, great. Glad that we just did a giant game of hot potato so that we could have this happen. Good. That's basically all there was to that. And so he says that if Rim gives the notebook to Higuchi, all will go as planned and Misa will be released from her confinement. If she's not released after several years, kill me. So Light was saying that basically if Misa was confined for several years, that Rim could kill Light. I guess he was planning that it might take longer than a couple days. So he was like, just make it years just to be safe, just to be on the safe side. But he figured eventually it would happen. And she's like, what are you thinking? And he's like, this is to save Misa. Trust me. And that shot of Rim's like, I'm doing this to save Misa, not for you. So, okay. So she has been doing this entire thing for Misa's interests. She's been following Light and trusting him under the guise that it's going to save Misa. And Light looks sincere in that moment, right? And she says, if Misa will be saved, I'll do as you ask. And then she flies off and goes from there. Yep. And so he's like, and then he basically explains everything that we've had leading up to him gaining his memories back. Yep. I'll relinquish ownership of the notebook and lose all my memory of the Death Note, which is exactly what happened. And the killings will begin again. And And if that continues, Ryuzaki will have to release both of us sooner or later. And he's like, I'll probably try to catch Kira too. I like that Light knows what he was going to do. He's like, I would probably try to catch Kira since that's the kind of person I am. So he said that he would, that his sense of justice, he's self-aware that his sense of justice would let him want to catch Kira. And so that's such a curious thing to me. That's such a curious thing. That's the kind of person I am. That he's like, I would want to uphold justice and catch Kira. But it's such a fascinating thing because now he is Kira. So things have changed, right? Because before it was okay for, he's like, I know that myself would want to catch Kira because that Kira would be wrong. But here, if I'm Kira, everything's fine. Catch me, why? You know, so it's so curious. Again, it's that fall from grace, like Light. It's so fascinating, that line. And Ryuk's like, well, you'll try to catch the guy that Rim gives the notebook to. He's like catching the audience up to speed. Like, wink, wink, if you didn't get that. And steal it before L gets to him. And then he says that, right, at that time, I'll kill the owner of the notebook. But there's one problem. If you don't have ownership of the notebook, your memory will only return while touching the notebook. So yeah, so you have to be the owner of it in order for it. There was a rule established way back in like episodes 12 or 13 that was like, if you steal a notebook from someone and they die while you're in possession of it, you gain possession back of it. That was being used right here. So it's like, awesome, cool. So basically he's saying that it has been in his possession now, not Light's, but as long as he dies, Light will gain it back. So, you know, like we do. And that's what he has to do. Once you let go, your memory will disappear. So that's an interesting caveat that, yeah, if he lets go of it, then it will disappear. So that's why he had to get this notebook back, because Misa had to get her notebook back. Otherwise, the memories would disappear. She needed the notebook she originally had to get those memories back, which meant that it had to go, because Light had a hold of it, it had to go back to being buried in the ground. And that, okay, yep, that all somewhat makes sense, I suppose. Okay. Yeah, all makes sense that that's how we did things. I'll kill Higuchi without letting go of this notebook. And the ownership will transfer back to me and my memory won't disappear. And so he did the thing 4 times within a second. 4 times because 4 is accompanied with death in Japanese culture. And he has in his watch a needle and a piece of the paper. It wasn't his wallet necessarily. We all debated in the comments whether it was in his wallet. It was in his watch. Time, man. And he said, I was wearing this watch because I knew I would be. Habits don't change. And the fact that, yeah, we established too, like one of the first rules when Misa showed up was that you can write anything. You could write it in blood. You could write it in lipstick, as long as you can write a name down. And he's like, Mr. Yangmi. And meanwhile, Elle is trying to get the situation under control. And then, yeah. And the fact that he did it all, for the record, I don't know if you've ever tried to like do anything with your hand, but like to do all of that with like one hand and everything, Light's pretty talented. I'm going to say that because I'm not that. I'm too clumsy to do that. And he says, this notebook, what do you suppose we'll find if we have it scientifically analyzed? And Elle's like, that's not like you. He's like, this is beyond science. He's like, that thing is beyond science. So yeah, Elle is like, we are not dealing. I like that Elle makes the note that we are no longer dealing with logical things. There's a supernatural element that Elle's like, we can't quite account for. So I like that he calls the death note that thing. That thing. And says that, I like that he calls it that thing and that it is not within science. Because that's a big step for Elle to admit that something is beyond science. That's a big, I'm proud of Elle. He's making some good steps, some good strides here. He's like, oh, that's true. And then he dies. And God, Light's acting. His acting in this scene is just on point because we know that he knows, right? And he says, the longest 40 seconds of my life. And then his eyes like having that red glow when Higuchi dies. But he's like, oh, he's like Ryuzaki Higuchi. And he acts, he lies. He lies so hard in this episode. Light lies so much, like with the act with Higuchi, to like prove, to say, oh, He's like, what are you doing? If Higuchi dies now, yeah, then they can't. And L's like, it's impossible. Oh my God. And that moment that Light looks down at L with that smile on his face. Oh, and says, Ryuzaki, you're next. Oh my God. Nope. So we have these two rules. So yeah, basically Higuchi's now dead. They can't get anything else out of him. That's it. They don't question how he dies. They don't question the whole heart attack thing because well, Light would have had to kill him in that moment, and he wasn't writing in the notebook that they saw. Can't pin it on him. Oh, damn. But they don't question it. So it is a prerequisite for the death note used in the human world that a living god of death makes sure that the humans in the human world use it. They make sure that humans use it. Interesting. So I'm going to write that up here. That Shinigami makes sure that the death note is used by humans in the human world. Now, that could either mean one of two things. That could either mean that Shinigami can't pick up the death note once it's dropped in the human world. They have to make sure a human gets a hold of it. Or it means that the gods of death have to make sure that humans use it once it's there. So that's kind of chilling. If it's the latter, the implication is that once the death note's there, it has to be used. Again, I think L is onto the fact that there are more than two death notes if they're there in the human world and being used, and we're going to tie that to the rule here, that if it's being used, then they could just be used daily and we don't even know it. People could just be dying because they've been written in the death note and nobody knows it. It's like, it's a bit creep. That part's creepy. If there's the fact that there's a bunch of death notes and there's the Shinigami just aren't aware of it. But then the other caveat they say is, the other rule that they bring up is, it is very difficult to consider that a god of death who has possessed a human could die. But if he should die, the death note they brought into the human world will not lose its power. Oh, let's reread that. It is very difficult to consider. So it's hard to think that a Shinigami who has possessed a human could die. But if he should die, the death note that he brought into the human world will not lose its power. So, possessed a human. I'm like, wait, what? So, a Shinigami could have possessed a human. Okay, glad we're finding out about this rule in the 12th hour. Or it's like the 9th hour, I guess, in this series. But, so a Shinigami can possess a human. Let me just back this up here. It doesn't say a death god's death note that's been given to a human. No, it says it's very difficult to consider that should they die, the death note would lose power. So here's, that sentence is worded so weird. Like the English teacher in me is like, this sentence is so wrong. Like the way that it's worded is deliberately confusing. So we have here that, okay, that death gods can possess humans. That's new. That they can possess humans. And so if they do, should they die, then it is difficult to consider that, it is very difficult to consider that a god of death who has possessed a human could die. Oh, okay. So, okay. Let's rephrase that. Because so basically, So apparently some death gods can possess humans. So a death god could possess a human. And it is hard to die if that happens. Okay. So if a death god possesses a human, then it may be hard for them to die. Okay. But if he should die, the death note brought into the human world will not lose its power. So the death god's death note will not lose power if they die. Okay. So basically what it's saying that if RYUK possessed a human and died, then the death note they brought with them won't lose its power even if they do die. Okay. So that's basically saying that Jealous dying did not cause his death note to lose power. Right? That did not happen. And so if Rim dies, Rim's death note will not lose its power. If RYUK dies, his death note will not use his power. It's the possessing a human part that's rather interesting. The possessing a human part is very interesting. So I'm like, will we see that happen with some of these people from the OP? Have they been possessed by Shinigami? Okay, why not? I guess. That's so interesting. That's probably one of the more interesting rules we've had there, and it could be just a translation issue. But I like that Misa's just sitting on the couch reading a fish magazine, and Elle's like, And him and Light at this point are still handcuffed. And Rim's just there! Rim is just in the room. That is the funniest damn thing about this episode, is that Rim's like, I could really be anywhere else. Rim's like, I love that Matsuda of all people's like Matsuda, they're all not freaked out by Rim, but they're just kind of like, well, this is interesting. And Aizawa and them, they're all just looking at her like, okay. And Aizawa has a death note. And so we have the things. The human whose name is written on this note shall die. This note will not take effects unless the writer has the person's face in mind. We get all those. How to use it. And it's the one that RYUK had. And so Aizawa's saying all of the rules. And Mogi and them are there. And Rim's sitting there watching them all. And Elle is hearing all this information. And at this point, Elle has, like, drained all of the creamers. He's had, like, 20 trying to deduce everything. And he's trying to, like, learn all the rules and see what's going to happen. And Light is just sitting there. Okay, so he's been, like, trying to deduce everything and think of everything up here. And the house is about to fall down. Yep. So he's got, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, like, 20 creamers. Right? And it's not even in his coffee. His coffee's black. So he's just been downing creamer. Just straight creamer. Oh, my dude. And so then he says, additionally, on the back covers instructions. So there's 2 notes on the back cover. And these are the lies. So the lies that are not true on the back cover are, if the person using the note fails to continuously write names of people to be killed within 13 days of each other, the user will die. So the user must kill within 13 days or die. And then if you make the note usable by tearing it up or burning it, all the humans who have touched the note will then die too. RYUK has great handwriting, by the way. Like, great handwriting. And then it says that if you burn or destroy the death note, then the users that touched will die. Those are the fake rules. And those rules are the thing that is being used as an alibi for Misa and Light. Because, yeah, that's getting them off the hook. That's getting them off the hook. Because basically it's saying, well, they had no choice. They had to keep killing people within so many days or they were going to die. Or we couldn't destroy the death note because if we did, we would die. So it's a perfect alibi. It's the perfect excuse of, oh, we had to do this because otherwise we were going to die and we didn't want that to happen. It's like, wouldn't any human do it under the same circumstances? Like, that's the argument. And as like Light is scanning this data, he's like, just has this, like, the most stone-faced. He's like, we won't try to dispose of it. I won't lose my memory of this. And he's like, there's no way that the old man will get mad at us if we write a fake rule, will he? No, there's no such rules against doing so. So the old man, the head Shinigami is not going to get mad for them writing fake rules in the Death Note. That's what he's implying. And it's like, okay. I'm still under the assumption that the old man is that person with the yellow eyes and the white hair. I think that's the king of the Shinigami. I think that's the final boss, is the king of the Shinigami, is that one. And Light's going to try to, like, take on the king of the Shinigami so he can be the ultimate god of the human world with the Death Note. And I'm like, Light. But yeah, he's like, fine, you owe me some apples. And of course he gives them to Misa to give to him. Oh, Light just looks so terrifying there. No! Y'all can, you know, laugh at me and snicker all you want, but I kind of miss BoyScout Light. And he's like, oh, I shouldn't have touched it. And then Daddy Yagami is like, yeah, well, you'd be the only one who couldn't see Rim, and then you'd feel left out, right? You've been complaining about that the entire, like, half of this season, right? And Matsuda's like, well, I just want to work on the same terms as everybody else. So, and then he says, and this last sentence. And I forget that in Japanese they read backwards. So he says, if the person using the note fails to consecutively write names of the people to be killed within 13 days of each other, then the user will die. And so Light, L's face in that moment where he's like, you can just see the gears turning in L's head like, that seems rather convenient. Seems like a rather convenient excuse, right? And Light's just like, oh God, just so arrogant. And he's like, Light and Misa are completely cleared. And they're like, yes, indeed, because they were detained for more than 50 days under surveillance. So someone else had to have had the Death Note. There's no way they could both be alive. Yeah, they can't be alive and be Kira. That's the thing. They die within 13 days. So it can't be them. It clears them. Daddy. And so, yeah. And that's when L asks Rim. He's like, was it you, the white-colored Shinigami? And of all things, Matsuda's like, that's rude, referring to it by its skin color. It's like, it's a death god. I don't think that there's races of death gods. I think we're okay. But, of course. And so, it's like, Rim, you did say Rim. And she's like, yes, it is. There are, and the yes, it is could have applied to both, right? He says, there are other notebooks in the human world, aren't there? And she says, who knows? There may be, there may not be. So she doesn't answer the question. She just tells Elle that there may be. She says there may be other notebooks, right? She does know about the one, but she also, here's the thing. Rim doesn't give him a distinct answer not because she's being coy, not because she's withholding information like Ryuk would. Ryuk wouldn't give him an answer either way. She's only, I feel, withholding that information because she wants Misa to be let loose. She wants Misa to be set free. That's the only reason I think she doesn't answer that question for him, because she wants Misa to be released. I think if Misa had already been free and he asked, I think she would have told him, because she'd be like, oh, I don't care. But the fact that Misa's still imprisoned and under surveillance means that she's not going to answer the question completely. So she doesn't deny it. She doesn't lie. She just gives a very vague non-answer and says, who knows? Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. And he says, if there were other notebooks, are all their rules the same? Yeah. And so Elle's already figured it out. Elle's already seen the writing on the wall. He's like, if I can track down another notebook and look at it, then I will know if Light has tampered with this one notebook. He's already figured it out. Like, Elle's figured it out instantly. But Light says, it's useless, Ryuzaki. You can't break this rule with Rim. I'm like, well, I don't know. I feel like after this episode, Rim might tell him. I don't know. We'll talk about it. And he's like, yeah, she says, yes, they're the same. There are many notebooks in the Shinigami realm, but their rules are all the same. Even the rules for when humans attain them. And Elle keeps quiet about that. Like, okay, all right. And so then Aizawa's like, come on, they're cleared now. The surveillance is over. And he's like, it's already clear. And Elle's like, yep, you're right. And this part is so hard. He almost puts the final creamer on top there. He almost does it. But then he doesn't. He doesn't put, because here's the thing, the tower doesn't fall over. That's the weird thing about this scene. I feel like my only thing that's keeping me somewhat happy in this moment is knowing that Elle is the idea that Elle didn't put that final thing on there to knock it over. It wasn't the final straw. It did knock the tower over. The tower stayed up. That makes me think that Elle has something in mind, some final desperate plan. I don't know what it is, but I refuse to believe that Elle's just giving up, right? He doesn't put the creamer up there. He lets it set. He says, I understand. And says, I'm very sorry about everything that's happened until now. And Light just smiling. Oh, and Matsuna and them were like, oh, okay, it's good. And he's like, there, thank goodness, son. He's like, yeah, but we can't say that until we've solved the case. He's like, I want these handcuffs removed, but I can still continue to investigate here. And Elle's like, yes. And that's the thing, because Light wants access to all that information so he can use it to start killing all the criminals. He's gonna gather up all the info from Elle's database that he has access to, and then once Elle's dead, he's gonna run off with it. God. And he's like, Misa and I are completely cleared. And he has no choice but to believe the fake rule that was written. I hate that look on Light. Like, Light is just so condescendingly looking at Elle. Oh, it's heartbreaking. By a Shinigami who did... What did he say? He said... I was trying to read what he was saying about that fake... I was so distraught at this point. I was like, oh my god. By a Shinigami into the notebook of death with the fake rules that I made up. Ryuzaki's lost his edge. I don't know, because as good of an actor as you are, Light, I feel like Elle can be a good actor too. So it seems like Elle's lost his edge. It does. It seems like Elle's completely lost it. But I'm holding out hope that Elle has a final trump card. I just don't know what it is, right? But that face that Light makes, it's so smug. He's like, listen, Ryuzaki. And this is where he's like, in any world, rules are created by those who are gods. I'm like, and Light believing he wrote the rules in the notebook. Technically it was RYUK, but he wrote the rules in the notebook, so he's a god, right? You'll be beaten by the rule that I created. And for the crime of defying the god of the new world, you're going to die. But that's such a... We established a few episodes ago that BoyScout Light was talking about Kira, and when Light was Kira, he was discriminate about who he killed, that he only killed people who had, done these serious crimes, who had murdered people. He didn't kill anybody that were in doubt, that did petty crimes, things like that. So by that logic, Elle should not be on the chopping block, but just because Elle tried to defy you, nixed. Oh my god. And that's it. And so then he sees Misa again. We don't get to see Light's eyes. And she's like, oh, send me text messages every day. And then Matsuda's like, oh, we're finally saying goodbye to Misa. Misa and I was like, let's leave him alone. I love that Matsuda's like, no, Misa! The kind of gross thing about this is that they all think that Light loves Misa and that they're dating, which is not the case. Because, yeah, again, Light, when he meets back up with Misa, he embraces her, but it's all for show. It is just for show, so that on the surveillance cameras, it looks like they're having this tender moment. But he's positioned himself where they can't see him on the camera. It's all fake. It's not real. And then he tells her that he's getting his memories back, and he goes and asks her to dig up the notebook. And so then she touches it and remembers everything. But here's the crazy thing with Misa. She remembers everything, right? She remembers and is no different. That's kind of the ingenious thing about Misa, is that she's rather pure, in all honesty. She doesn't put up a front. She doesn't put on a persona. Misa's always very, very genuine. And so even when she was, a bit yandere for Light with the Death Note kind of just exacerbated that and made her even more of a yandere. she was still herself. So she's very convincing as second Kira because she's not putting on an act. It's still her. Just the Death Note gives her away. She wants to make Light love her. And her logic is, well, if I do these things for Light, he will love me. So, okay, I'm going to do them. And the Death Note just kind of makes it to where those things that will make him love her are killing people. So, yeah, it's not right. But she's so, like, genuine in her actions and everything. Whereas Light, he puts on so much of a front. It's totally the opposite. But I was so floored in this moment that I wanted to see, she's like, Light, I remember. And that's when she sees, like, the note that falls out, right? I do love her fashion. She's like, you buried this notebook so that I could remember. Which is true. He did do that for her. He says, for Misa from Light Yagami. He says, by the time you've read this letter, you should have remembered everything. And so he says that she's like, oh, a letter from Light! Yeah. And he says, do you remember my friend at Toho University who went by the name Hideki Ryuga? And so he says, I want you to write his name in the notebook and kill him. But she knows that it's L by now, right? She knows it's him. I'm like, that part's so weird. Because he says, you know my friend from Toho University. He's like, Ryuga Hideki. It's like, remember his name? Write it and kill him. I'm like, but if she remembers, she knows it's L's face. So, why would she not remember, right? Why would she not remember? And kill him. And burn this letter. And hide a few pages of the notebook with you and bury the notebook. So he asked her to bury the notebook again. That's interesting. So he tells her to basically, the steps of the plan are kill L and then burn his letter so that no one will find it. Take pages of the notebook, right? And then bury the Death Note. So that's curious. Now, you could be asking, why would Light do this? I don't know. My theory is he's using her. He's using Misa as Kira, right? So he doesn't want her to have access to a full note. He's limiting her powers, basically. He doesn't think that she has the Shinigami eyes. He thinks that she'll just remember his name, that she won't have the Shinigami eyes. And so he thinks that if she just takes a few pages of the notebook, you know, he could take those pages away, or she could use them all up or whatever, and then she'd have to go back and find the notebook again. So it's a way of him to control Misa in a way, because if she doesn't have the full notebook, if she's only limited to a few pages, he could just go back and get the notebook before she gets a hold of it, right? And control her through that. So I don't know. Again, we're going back to that with him and her. When you meet me again, casually touch me with a piece of the notebook so he'll remember RYUK. If you do this, Misa Amani, I will love you for the rest of my life. It's like that's the thing. If she remembers that L is Ryuga, she knows L. They're friends. She's made, a promise that she wouldn't hurt any of Light's friends, and they remember that they're all friends together. So Light's way of making her forego that is to say, well, yeah, I know we're all friends, but if you kill him, I'll love you forever. That's just wrong. That's just wrong. You're using her, and you're playing with her. You're toying with her emotions and using her love for Light to kill someone. And you don't love her back, so God, Light. And she's like, this is Light's plan. And she thinks that he really will love her. He wanted me to get this notebook to regain my memory and kill Hideki Ryuzaki. So she does know it's L. She does know it's him. I don't know why he did the Toho University friend, if they've all known it was been him. But here's the thing. Okay, no, that was the thing. He took her to the notebook. He wrote that letter before they went into custody. So he didn't know that they would all be working with L. He didn't know that she'd be working with L as well. So he just planned for the idea that if she had been away, he was going to send her the notebook and remember, so Hideki Ryuga, she would have remembered him even if she hadn't been working with L. That all makes sense. Now that makes sense. Okay. One of Light's obstacles will disappear and I'll be helpful to him. What's insane is that they've all been working together. Granted, L has been holding them captive, so that's probably why she doesn't feel so bad about killing L, because he did hold her captive and she has the memories of when he tortured her, so that probably all lines up as well as part of it. But it's just, the sad thing is she instantly is okay with killing someone just so that it will help Light. That's the scary thing about the Death Note with Misa, is that she is already willing, she's willing to kill anyone for Light. Without hesitation. And Light promising that he'll love her. Oh, frustrating! But she can't remember. She's like, it's no good. I can't remember his name. I saw dozens and hundreds of names and lifespans every day. Uh-huh. She's like, I can't remember it. That's the funny thing, is she can't remember his name. She regained all her memories back, but again, it was for a brief second. So she only saw it for a second before she was cut off. So that's the thing. She doesn't remember. She's like, I can't remember it all. Misa's so stupid. And then she sees Ryuk and he's like, hey, I'm finally able to come back. Ryuk's like, I've been gone from the show. I'm glad Ryuk's back. But let's talk about their dynamic, right? And she's like, oh, it's been a while. How have you been? She gives him a big old hug, right? And what's interesting is that he's like, I'm sorry, and he starts to disappear. He makes himself invisible so that she'll fall off of him. I'm like, I didn't know Shinigami could do this. And he's like, I'm a male. You're making me shy. So, okay. So Ryuk gets shy around girls. He kind of has a very similar reaction that L has to Misa, which is interesting. Like, Ryuk's like, you're making me shy. And L kind of has a similar reaction to her. I don't know. Ever since we learned about this possession rule, I'm like, is L possessed by a Shinigami? Can he be possessed by Shinigami so he doesn't have to die? At this point, I'll settle for anything so that L doesn't have to die. Any excuse show. You can come up with the biggest piece of BS possible and I'll buy it. I'll give you a lock, stock, and barrel. Please, let L not die. And so she gives Ryuk an apple as a bribe from Light, surprising no one. But he gives... And Ryuk goes back to saying the same thing as before. She's like, is it really that good? And he's like, yes, apples in the human world are, what's the word? Juicy. Back to there. At any rate, they're great. So it's almost like Light is with Rim now, which is like your two cooler heads. And then you have Ryuk and Misa that are like chaos. And I kind of like Ryuk and Misa together. But she's like pretty... Here's the difference. Light was pretty much like, Ryuk, if you're not going to help me, just, I guess, be here. But Misa's a lot nicer to Ryuk. She sitting there watching him, being asking him questions and being kind of nice to him. And he says, oh, do you want to eat one? And he brings her this apple from the Shinigami world. And it's all scrunched up and sandy. It looks like a pepper, right? It's an apple from the Shinigami realm. And she's like, oh. And she just looks at it kind of doesn't look very good. And he's like, oh, come on, just one bite. And I was like, is something going to happen to her? And she says, oh yeah, Ryuk, do the deal I deal with me. And he says... And she eats it and she goes, oh, it's sand. It's got sand in it. Like it's made from sand. And he looks at her and says, a deal, huh? And she nods. And he says, you understand, don't you? You've made a deal with Rim once before. If you do it again, you're going to halve your life a second time. Now, granted, she gained a lot of life from Jealous. So we don't know exactly how much it's been halved. They're going to show the numbers here in a minute. It is considerably less than it was. But there's a big difference here. Ryuk, with Light, Ryuk was constantly trying to get Light to take the deal. He was like, don't you want the eyes? Don't you want the eyes? You want the eyes? And I think Ryuk did that because he knew Light was going to say no. He was like, no, he knew Light's ego. Light was going to say no here. But when Misa asks, he tries to talk her out of it. He's like, no. And I wonder if Ryuk kind of realizes, Rim ain't gonna like this if you take the deal. Rim doesn't want your life to be halved anymore. because it's going to tie back to Light. And she's like, well, it can't be helped. I've forgotten the name I had to remember. And so Light will be angry at me if I don't take a look at it again. And Ryuk's like, well, it's fine with me. But see, Light did not anticipate her having to have the eyes again. Light thought I feel like Light thought she would not need the deal again. I thought he probably thought she'd just remember and be able to kill him right off. And so Ryuk's kind of like, okay, this is not part of the plan. But the funny thing is, it's kind of like, that's that irony, right? That's that irony is that Misa, this wasn't part of the plan, but Light made it part of the plan by encouraging her to kill him no matter what. She would do anything to appease him. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, I feel like this is going to happen. And Ryuk gives her the eyes. So then she goes to see him. And it's like, oh, it's Misa. And I like the L is back in the corner with the ice cream cone. Like, if this is my last meal, I'm going to enjoy this damn ice cream cone. We can't turn our cell phones in here. So she has to come here to visit you. Now, that's a curious thing. They can't turn those cell phones on. Weren't they using cell phones throughout the last couple episodes? Wasn't that a thing? Why is it not a thing? I'm sure in the comments y'all will explain. And he says, go to her quickly. And Daddy Yagami's like, you shouldn't make a woman wait. Be a good boyfriend, remember? And Light's like, oh, I gotta pretend to be her boyfriend. That's right. And he's like, yeah. He looks real super thrilled to go. And Rim is like, wait, what's going on? And that's when she sees. And she's like, why? And she's like, why is Ryuk attached to Misa? Why is she back? Why is she back where she's in trouble? And that's when Rim sees that the numbers have changed. She's down to 56. And he's like at 128 something. So he's like double that, right? She's down to 56. Her life has been halved once more. And Rim is like, no, did she do the ideal with Ryuk? So this is where things are going to get muddy. Because I have a feeling, I'm just going to throw this theory out here. Do not tell me if I'm right or wrong. But I'm going to throw this theory out here that Rim is going to start to come to the conclusion that maybe Light is going to use Misa. That he's going to use her like Higuchi was using her. And I don't know. Rim was told to kill Higuchi if all things went south. So I'm like, is Rim going to translate that to Light? I feel like I want Rim and L to become buddies. I want Rim and L to become friends. You know why? Because I don't feel like L, I don't know. My gut instinct would be to say I don't feel like L will use Rim, but he clearly will because he wants to know how to. But here's the thing. He's not going to use Rim to kill anybody. He wants to use Rim to learn about how it all happens. It's to gain information. That's what L, I feel like, wants to use Rim for, is to gain information. Not to do this dastardly plan. But I feel like Rim is maybe starting to catch on that, oh, Light didn't just save Misa out of the kindness of his heart and because he loves her like she loves him. No, he's going to use her and her powers. Because yeah, if he loved Misa, he wouldn't be asking her to kill L. He would do it himself. He would, if he truly loved Misa, if Light loved Misa, once she was gone, he would not have her go back and get the Death Note and regain those memories. He'd let her go live her life. He'd let her go be a model and live her life again. But that's not what's happening. And I think that's what Rim thought was going to happen, was that he told Rim, I'll get Misa free for you. And Rim's like, well, she loves you. So if you care about her, you'll do this. And so Light's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And Light only did it because Rim threatened to kill him. She's like, if you don't get Misa out of this, I'll kill you. And he's like, fine, I'll get her out of it. But now that she's out of it, Light's using her again. And I think Rim's going to be like, now wait a minute. This is not part of the bargain. The bargain wasn't to let her free so that you could use her. It was just to let her free so she was out of harm's way. She's back in harm's way and now her life's been halved again. And I wonder if Rim is going to say that Light caused this to happen and question Ryuk about it. But Elle is watching this all unfold, right? Eating the ice cream cone. And of course, she puts the paper on there so that he can see RYUK. And he's like, oh, it's been a while, RYUK. And RYUK's like, oh, hey, welcome back. How's it going? God. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I don't remember Hideki Ryuga's name. I can't remember. And he's like, that's too bad. And she's like, but I did the eye bargain with RYUK. So Rim, here's the thing too. Rim paid attention. Rim knew instantly that her life had been halved again. Light didn't know when he saw her. But then again, they can't see each other's lifespan that they have left, can they? No, they can't. But Rim can see it. And she's like, everything's going as planned, huh? And he's like, you're an idiot. If you do that, your life will be halved. And she's like, no, it's all right. I want to be of help to you. And Elle watching it all go down. Like, what are they doing? What are they planning? And he says, Misa, right now, I want you. And again, this is completely, we're going back to episode 13. We're going back to maybe it was episode 11. We're going back to the confession episode. Back in the confession episode, Light held her in his arms and was like, oh, I love you. If you help me, it'll make the world a better place and you'll appease Kira. And she was like, okay. And RYUK and Rim were like on either side of them in this creepy thing. Here, RYUK's still on their side. Rim is not. And I think that's symbolic. I feel like Rim is on the opposite end over with Elle and them now, not on the same side as Light and them. And I feel like that's intentional. He's like, I want to live with you for a long time in our ideal world. And she's like, oh, I'm so happy. And she's like about to cry. And he says, Misa, let's make a new world without crime, with only kind people. Let's make it together. And I'm like, Elle's kind? Elle's kind? He's not committed any crimes. And I feel like Elle's like, well, shit, I am screwed. Because he knows. He knows. That whole thing, love at first sight. He knows. I feel like in that moment when she embraces Light, he's like, I know exactly what's happened. It's all gone according to plan. Light is using Misa. She has the Shinigami eyes. She's gonna find out who I am and kill me. No. And that whole image of them. Oh my God. And yeah, Elle. And then Light with the damn look in his eyes. Why? Just why? And that's it. Oh. Nope. Nope. I'm not going to be able to wait, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't. I'm not going to be able to wait. I love you all dearly, but I can't wait. Again, if it was not like 11 o'clock at night, I would watch episode 25, but I have to work tomorrow. I'm going to be sitting there at work all day being like, Death Note. But yeah, so it's such a double-edged sword. On the one hand, old egotistical god complex Light's back. Are you happy? Are you happy he's back? It's like, he's entertaining, but the fact that he's using Misa, the fact that he wants to kill Elle, and that he's very close to killing Elle, the only thing I can figure at this point is that maybe Elle will be able to, get Rim to help him. I don't know how, I don't know why, but here's the sad thing. I feel like Elle could die in the next episode. This series, with those other characters we've not met yet, I just have a feeling that Elle could die in the next episode. And if that happens, then if Elle dies in the next episode and that happens, then Light will be all by himself facing whoever these other characters are. And if they turn out to be far worse than anything we can imagine, and Elle's not there to help Light anymore, or to bounce ideas off of or anything, then it's like, what do we do? So, I don't know. This show, I'm really worried Elle's going to die next episode, and I know I shouldn't be. I know that but it's 25 episodes in. They had a good run, right? And I don't know. Light, I don't see Light backing down from killing him. I don't. At this point, Light's like, let's just do the damn thing. So I don't see him backing down. Misa, I don't see her backing down because Light's told her that if she kills Elle, he'll love her forever. He's meatloafed her. he's paradised by the dashboard Lightster. And I feel like Elle's only hope is Rim. At this point, Elle's only hope is Rim. Is getting Rim to do the thing. To help her get out of this somehow. But I don't know how that would even work. This episode had so many twists and turns. I just don't know. I don't know. Now, Daddy Yagami can hear and see Rim, so I don't know if there's going to be anything to it. If Elle just asked to see Rim's notebook, he'd be able to see that all the rules are different. But I don't know if he knows to ask that. I don't know if he realizes the Shinigami have their own death note as well. Maybe he doesn't realize that because that's not been established, right? Maybe he doesn't know that Rim has her own death note. Guys, I don't want Elle to die. So yeah, sure. We're gonna brace for that. I'm very curious to know your thoughts down below. Please, no spoilers. I know, just watch me be tortured for the rest of the series. You'll all get a kick out of it, I'm sure. But I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen, but I am terrified. So, in the meantime, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with episode 25 of Death Note. Bye.